Hello, welcome in. Oh my gosh, Mr. RX here with the love. Welcome in, Shock Value. First time chat, awesome. Triobium as well, welcome in, thank you for being here. We are very excited for tonight's stream. There's a lot of components to it. So first we have Augustus on the Buchla right now. Because, oh, Triobium, thank you for the follow. Thank you so much. Welcome in. Always fun to have new friends in the chat. We love it. So hopefully you can hear everything that's going on. Me talking, the Buchla being played, and as I was saying, I don't have the Buchla cam set up tonight because we're doing, you know, the guest hang. But we always want to give you some sounds. So I'm gonna pull up my system here to make sure I can see what's going on with the stream and that everything's coming through. We have Synth Todd in the chat. Welcome in. Thank you so much for being here. It's gonna be a fun one. We're doing some Buchla sound design right now that you can't see because I didn't set up the camera, but here we are. And today was like a really intense day for a lot of things happening for us. So very synth related, very on theme for tonight's Synth Friends Hang. So whether you saw or not, we'll tell you about it. Obviously the fact that Sarah's coming to hang with us right now and that she premiered our recording or performance of the graphic score that she made. And I asked Gus to locate it for me, and we don't know where it is at this particular moment. But there is a picture of it in the post that Sarah put on her Patreon. There's a picture of the score that we interpreted, and as well as the recording and the video. And so, you know, my recommendation is that you support her Patreon, obviously. And I'm going to put the link to the post here so that you can enjoy checking that out, and that will also take you to her Patreon where you can support. The Postcard Project is super cool, and we're going to talk all about it with Sarah. So we're going to also, you know, share that with anyone who may not have seen it yet. We're going to play the video of us performing her composition. So it would be cool if I could do it from the blog post and share that so that you can see the score, but we'll figure it out. And then Augustus also got to review a new, I want to say like software instrument. Sorry, I was like, I better call it the right thing.
It's okay.
Welcome in, Randism. Yes, we forgot to set up the synth cam because we weren't thinking about playing synth tonight, but that's gonna always be part of the deal, so there it is. And sorry, what were we just talking about? Oh, Cherry Audio. Cherry Audio just released a new software instrument, and
Signs.
it's called Signs. And Augustus got, his hands on it and was able to create actually something that I think you can experience on the website.
Yeah, well, I did a little demo, and they actually asked me what I thought about the plugin.
Oh, shoot. I should grab a link to that.
I got to give my thoughts on what I thought about it.
Yeah, you gave your thoughts on your thoughts. I should have that link.
And
let's see.
It is a really cool software instrument.
Is this going to
One thing I love about their stuff is they do standalone mode,
Check it
so
out.
you don't necessarily have to use it inside a DAW.
Where is the...
It kind of reminds me of the old Native Instruments stuff.
Oh, it's all here. Okay, so this one long page is going to have everything about it, how you can buy it, what Gus thought of it, and his demo of it. It's all going to be here. Okay, I think that's all the news. That's all the news.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to close this browser so it doesn't cause us to have stream problems. And we are going to hop into the Zoom and bring on Sarah. So this is going to be very exciting. So without further ado, welcome in, everybody. Oh, thank you, Zurich, for the follow. Thank you. Welcome in. As I said, without further ado, we are going to bring in Sarah Belle Reid. Sarah, you are on the live.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm on the live.
You're on the live.
Hi,
So I don't know if you're able to see, I probably should have told you this before. The chat, sorry. I'm just going to inhale cough out of nothing right now for no reason. If you could see the chat for the Twitch, I think you can pop it out and just see the chat if you wanted to. Some people that come on this say, no, I don't want to see it. I just want you to read it to me. So I
think
sometimes
I have it open
read it.
here.
But yeah, if you can, that way you can see all the love you're getting or any questions that are coming through. It's just a more dynamic experience for everyone involved. Welcome in, Ale Salva 87. I love these emotes. Amazing. First time chat. A lot of first time chatters. I think, we, Sarah and us, have been talking for, I think, over a year.
I think so.
I think so,
At
which is just been the cycle of our lives. Shock value, thank for the follow. I saw you as a first time chatter as well. Welcome in. We did the Postcard Project as part of your Patreon. So everyone who's just getting in here for a minute here, this is the link, which you might still be able to see, but I'm just going to pop it here again. This is a post that Sarah made today. It's in her Patreon, but it's public so you can see it, and it explains the Postcard Project a little bit, and it explains how we collaborated on this graphic score that Sarah created on this postcard that she mailed to us, which is a very cool way to mail someone a composition.
I actually think it's literally right in that little cubby.
I think
where
it
the
is.
audio interface
I think it is in the room with us, but we can't reach it. I might try to grab it in a minute.
I'm almost positive that
I remember it was on this desk, and we were like, we're gonna hold it up, but then
seriously one of our most cherished items. So I'm really surprised that we don't know where it is right now.
Right, because our job is to draw on the other side of the postcard, to draw a graphic score and send it back to you.
Right. Well, I think I sent you a blank one, didn't I?
Oh, is that what it was? It's just a blank one. Yeah, you're right.
So that way you can keep yours if you want, and you can send me a new one back.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you for reminding us again. So this is through Sarah's Patreon. So that's why I put that link there, because it'll take you to the post about it where you're going to get to see and hear what we created, but also will link you right into her Patreon so that you can support her there and be part of the community. Really, you have so much going on. So I kind of want to give you the floor.
Community.
Yeah, just to explain to everybody what is going on with your Patreon, because there's a lot of components to it.
Sure. Where do I
I know, right?
Thanks for having me here, first of all.
All right. I'm so good at
I'll start with
intros.
that.
Like, let's talk about it, okay?
And thanks everyone for being here. It's really fun. So Patreon. Yeah. Well, the Postcard Project was actually, I realized today that it's been going for 5 years, which blew my mind. But I actually started it right when I started Patreon back in 2017. Is that?
Wow.
Yeah. Right. So it's a pretty big milestone as well. And that's really exciting. And the way that so I'll talk a little bit about how it works, maybe just for a second. And then if there's other stuff Patreon related that we should talk about, I can totally do that. I actually have something really exciting on Patreon that's starting next week. So maybe I can.
Yes.
That would be really
You
cool.
heard it here
Secret. It
first.
hasn't been shared with anyone except for my patrons yet. So that's pretty cool. But the Postcard Project first. So basically, it's a long-term, long-distance collaborative project between myself and everyone in my Patreon community, where I create graphic scores, like you said, on the backs of postcards, and I send them out to people. And then once you receive it, sometimes I write little instructions, but usually it's very open and free to interpret in literally any way that you feel inspired, with any instrument that you feel inspired to use. You don't need a musical background. That's a big question, is like, do I need to be able to read music? Do I need to have formal training? Totally not. It's really more about responding to the shapes on the pages and the colors, and just kind of responding in whatever way makes sense to you, and being, playful with it and just adventure it, like just to explore. So it's really fun. And so people have responded in a ton of different ways. You all made a really cool video as well as some audio. And then once you do your interpretation of the score, you are then invited. I always include a blank postcard, and you can send me one back, which can be anything. People have made like collages. People have made like sculptures, which are so cool. There's this one, it's on my website, which I could maybe send a link to.
Absolutely.
But there's like this weird, fascinating sculpture with like resistors and hot glue and like little electrical components. And I actually ended up playing the object as the instrument, like, because I realized it made these cool little rattly sounds when I plucked the different pieces of metal. Anyway, so people, and it's just basically a sonic exchange. Like, we just talk via these graphic scores and these sounds. And I want to just give a shout out, though. This project was inspired by a composer named James Tenney, who had created something called postal pieces, which were basically little tiny, very, very simple scores on postcards that he made for his friends. And I just always thought that was really lovely and charming. And like, I love snail mail, and, it's so exciting to get something in the mail.
Yes.
And I just thought the idea of composing a little piece for a friend was really, really nice. And so that's really, what inspired this project in a big way. Yeah. Here, let me type the link.
Yeah, please do. The creativity of everyone in the Patreon is not limited to synthesizers.
Oh no.
It's very broad.
Yeah. No, thanks for saying that. Yeah, there have been people who have, are visual artists and have responded back with like their own visual kind of interpretation, which I think is really cool. There have been people, one patron plays the Irish bouzouki, which is like a lower part of the mandolin lute family. I don't know if there's any bouzouki players.
Yeah, we don't want to get it
it's
wrong.
A string, like a plucked string instrument. So anyway, it's not just modular synthesis, but there's definitely a lot of us, because, we travel in packs as well.
Exactly.
I think that's the right link. I didn't put it in the right chat though.
Okay.
Sorry.
That link is going to make the rounds now. And this is a link to your website that's going to point people to this postcard project that was the sculpture, or just your website?
Yeah,
okay.
It's just the whole archive of the Postcard Project. So like how it works, what it is, everyone, you can see all of the exchanges. There's it's a really amazing collection.
Right. It's the
And
whole
yours is now
collection.
there as well.
Yay.
Mhm.
It is really cool how we started this. Like you said, it's a long-term, long-distance collaboration. And the piece that you gave us specifically was, I mean, I interpreted it to be time travel, but it just said travelers.
Yeah.
It could mean a lot of things.
Well, I do my best to always make the scores personal to as much as I know about the people who are collaborating. And I had a hunch that might be inspiring to you both. A little bit of time travel.
Amazing. So,
yeah. Definitely.
It was extremely different, unique, the experience to get that in the mail. And then we would be like...
And we're pretty easy to peg. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah, it was just very exciting, the whole process, and how much it surprised us when we were like, all right, let's, improvise around this idea. And then the whole thing happened and we were like, oh, I feel like we somehow implanted the score in our brains. Mm-hmm. And then it spit out what we did. We're like, how did that happen? There's some magic in the mix, I think.
I would say there was anytime you enter into a performance, and you don't really know what you're going to do. I don't know. And or
you're not sure that what the end result is going, you think, but you're not,
I mean, I usually go in pretty blind.
Sure.
But when you end up going into something like that and you just say, I don't know. I just remember the last thing I did was look at that thing and then just let my imagination be that.
What it inspired.
That's great. That's the right way. There really isn't a right or wrong way. You can be as analytical and, specific as you want or not, but that's a perfect way to approach it. So I'm happy to hear that.
Yay, we did it right.
Yeah. Well, there's no right or wrong.
No right or wrong. Everyone is right and everyone is wrong. Amazing. So that is that. So we do have that piece to share, but I feel like we should, maybe, I don't know, is now the perfect time to watch it? Or do we save it and make everyone wait till the end so it doesn't interrupt the conversation?
One more thing that I was going to say about what I was saying before is just that even just the slightest hint of intention, like something like the card, will just really inspire a performance. As opposed to a time when you might just be playing for the heck of it, with no real specific reason in mind. But then you look at the postcard and then that just, I don't know, it just fires off, additional synapses and makes you that much more into it, and I really enjoyed that opportunity.
Yeah, it gives you the spark.
Yeah, I love that. That's something that so I'm primarily an improviser as well. And that's, in group settings or solo settings, it's really the way that I feel most just connected to live performance and creating music. And, but something that I really love to do is bring in different ways of scoring improvisation. And that sometimes to a lot of people sounds like a little bit of an oxymoron, it's supposed to be spontaneous. How can you score it? But I think something that you just said made me think about this. It's something as simple as a color, or a shape and a color, or an adjective and a color, or whatever, or just an adjective can be enough to kind of focus that intention for either yourself if you're alone or with a group of people. And I love color in particular because it can be so personal and yet so vivid and it can really bring up a lot of stuff. For your score, there was this big red thing traveling throughout it, whatever you want to call it. And so, you both, I don't know if you talked about what red meant for you, but maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but you were both, just united on redness. I'm getting really woo-woo here.
I love it. That's what we're here for.
And maybe for one of you, red is a really alarming color of emergency. And maybe for another one of you, the red is like the color of, passion or something. And it's very different, but it's still a common link, right? That kind of connects you in a meaningful way. And I've found that can be really powerful. And it makes these like, quote unquote, kind of magic things happen. It makes these little coincident moments happen that otherwise, if you were just, let's just jam and free play, you may not hit, or you may not notice. That's the other thing. You may not notice when they happen.
Yes, that's a really good point. It gives it gives you a framework, but that framework is still open to interpretation.
Totally. And for me, it challenges me to think, I'm like, how do I play red? Like that's something I've thought about it a lot, but
right.
A lot of people haven't thought about, like, how do I play red? How do I play red square versus red circle? Like, that brings up a lot of questions.
That sounds like a really fun, like Mr. Rogers style video where you would do that and then play it and then like ask the kids if they felt it, because kids are so honest and intuitive. Yeah. In that way, they don't need like structure to their language. They could answer like, this red circle sounds like this. They'd be like, no, it doesn't actually. It should be more like this. Right.
Kids are actually amazing at this. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. They just are there. They're totally available for it, which is great. Yes. So everyone out there can go play red circles later if you want, and think about what
that's your
means.
Prompt, and think about it. Okay. Homework. I want you to return that information back to us some form.
I would love to hear that too.
There you go. There's your assignment. We'll be looking out for it. I feel like we should play the video now since it's on topic. And what's going to happen is it's just going to be like over top of our faces a little bit. So we'll still be here. Everyone can sort of see us behind it, but I didn't want to make a whole other scene where I had to make it perfect and put us in different squares. So I'm just putting it over our faces.
Okay, great.
It's 4 minutes and 35 seconds.
Is it?
So yeah, if anybody needs to like...
It's a little, I don't think I've done this before. I'm just going to say that, like, watched my own thing while watching myself with people watching. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This might be a first. Also, just shout out to everybody in the chat who's saying cool things about the Postcard Project and what this is inspiring. A pure sign and pointy corners are harmonic. Okay, I'm going to definitely think about that more, Triobium. All right, so here we go. Hopefully this will play correctly. So, Sarah, you probably can't hear this or see this because it's only on the stream right now. And it's not coming through like our conversations audio. So, if everyone can see and hear this, give us a thumbs up in the chat. Okay, I think we did it. We successfully streamed that as in a premiere-like fashion. I apologize if that was sensory overload for some of you. I know that having like the video over the video was a lot, but I'm also trying to figure out why I lost the other half of my stars.
Hmm?
Because if I do this, it'll be over top of it. So I can't have that. Bye, everybody. Oh no. I'm trying to make it better and I'm making it worse. Sorry, guys. 1 second. Where did it go? I lost Sarah, you guys. She's lost in space right now. What do I do?
Somehow seems appropriate.
Oh no. I don't even know what this is. Oh, it's this. Oh, I just need to get this behind.
Get it behind.
Get it behind. Yay! I don't know why that other side is missing. I'm so sorry. That was so crazy. I'm so anxious about playing my own thing here that I just like broke the whole stream about it. I did find the score. So if you're wondering, like, why was that video so swooshy? This is why.
That's why.
And you can look at it a lot of different ways.
You can.
So we had fun with like playing around with the direction of everything too.
Awesome.
So thank you for inspiring all of that. And, just doing a fun thing just for experimentation's sake.
Thank you for joining in on it. I mean, it's totally my pleasure. This is the stuff that I absolutely love and get very excited about. So I'm grateful that there are people out there like yourselves who are just like, yeah, okay, let's do it. Let's play red.
Yeah. I guess I'm always like so grateful when I find that in other people that I forget that we're also bringing that to the table. Okay, I'm just reading the chat here. There's a lot of fun stuff going on, but I just wanted to drop the link to Sarah's Postcard Project. So that whole conversation, yay, welcome cat.
What's your cat's name?
This is Zucchini.
Zucchini. Hey.
I have another cat named Mango. So
Together
they are
Zucchini and Mango.
Yeah. This is the one who always needs to be in the studio on the desk, as you can see.
Ah, I see.
So she is now part of this.
See, we're synth hypocrites because we don't have a cat.
We don't have a cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like we're 100% synths without the cat. So this is perfect. You're helping our cat cred.
My pleasure.
Awesome. So that concludes our postcard project conversation. I put the links in the chat, so go check out the postcard project.
Yeah, that felt really business-like.
It did. It was very businessy. It's the most businessy we've ever been. Definitely support Sarah's Patreon, but because you get to do awesome stuff like that and also meet amazing other creative, inspired people of all, walks and interests. So I'll drop that link again later too. But I think we want to talk a little bit about, you have a new album that you put out recently, and you've got an amazing course that you teach on synthesis. So we want to hear all about.
Let me make it a little simpler. Hey, Sarah, what are you up to?
What are you up to?
That doesn't make it.
That doesn't help.
I don't know if that makes it simpler.
Fine.
That's so funny. I did just release an album, which I feel like is super on topic to the travelers, time travel, because it's called Nows, and it's all about like existing in and within and without and around multiple nows. I'm like really big into thinking about time as a, just tangled ball of what. And so I was really fortunate to collaborate with a wonderful good friend of mine, amazing musician and pioneer in the electronic music space, whose name is David Rosenboom. And he worked early on with like Don Buchla and did a lot of really interesting brainwave music in the 70s, and just a really fascinating person. And we are both obsessed with time and we have really similar kind of ideas and dreams and questions about time. And we also both play acoustic instruments that we love to like combine with our modular synths. And so all of that together was like the perfect storm to be like, why don't let's make music and see what happens. And so that's where the record came from. And it's kind of, I'm looking over here because I have it. Let me just do this and hold it up so people can see.
I'm grabbing the link to your Instagram because I know everything is there.
Everything's on Instagram. Yeah, totally.
But just know that when you click this link, everyone, you're going to get this album. That's what you're doing.
And it's streamable everywhere, and all the good things. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. It's wild. Like, it is a very intense album. I will just preface by saying that there's a lot of sound.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely.
Are we talking like
heads up
Xenakis level? Like, I have to warn everyone around me when I'm putting this on the speakers.
It depends who you're hanging out with, I guess.
Exactly. You need to like step up your friends you listen to music with game with this album.
Right. Yeah. I like to think of it as a challenging listen, which I think is good. That could be good.
Absolutely.
One that kind of like makes you be like, what is sound anyway? Like, what am I hearing?
When did it come out?
Just a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's real fresh.
Awesome.
I think.
I know, it's like, talk about time. Like, when you're making an album and then releasing it, like, the experiences and levels of it being out there for you is happening in all these layers. So like, when did it become available for everyone? Who knows?
I think it was a few weeks ago.
It's recent.
It's recent. It's very fresh.
I love it.
Yeah.
So that's exciting because there have been, I feel like, a lot of we obviously focus on early electronic music, and a lot of people that we've been covering over the past 2-3 years in our podcast, as we cover them, like, a surge of like reissues will happen. It's like this weird cosmic timing thing that keeps happening for us. We don't know these things. We're not like tuned in. I don't know. We're just doing what makes us happy, and sometimes it collides. So I've seen this wave of like reissuing music maybe that was never available to listen to, because a lot of this music was created in and for like academic settings.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like World's Fair settings, or, studios tucked away, and like it gets used in film and TV, and you never really know like who made it.
Totally.
So we're in this like modern era where we're making music that was never really publicly available, but now is becoming more popular, and we're making more of it. And I just think that's very interesting.
Retro futuristic.
A very interesting time to be making this kind of music.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw that someone in the chat was asking if we played one instrument or if it's pretty varied. This is definitely the most varied instrumentation of an album that I've ever participated on. David and I, so as I mentioned, we both play, it kind of started because I play trumpet and Buchla, I mean, modular synth in general, but he, like I said, participated in a pretty big way in early Buchla stuff. And so he has an old, like a small vintage 200 system. And I was just like, we've got to play together on these instruments because I just want to hear what that sounds like. And he plays violin.
Oh, wow.
And combines that with his Buchla. So that's where it started. But then when we started recording, it was just like a playground. Like, it was like, I don't know, I hear this sound and it makes me think of this random household object that I have that I can like bow in an interesting way. And so we would go and grab it. And I think there's one track where he literally took an ornamental like horn, you know, those like shell horns that people I guess have.
Some people have them.
And he played it on one of the tracks. I actually, in all honesty, do not know which track, but he told me that it made its way.
It made it. Okay. So everybody, when you're listening, be listening
find
out.
The ornamental wall horn.
Yes. Yes, exactly, Jojer. Correct emote. Correct.
Yeah, that's
you should win a prize for that.
Anyway, so yeah, all kinds of things. I mean, field recordings, feedback circuits, lots of software, you know, max patches and things that we made, random pots and pans, things that you find lying around that make interesting sounds. It was the whole gamut of sound making objects, I guess.
That does sound like a playground. That was the perfect word.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and it was fun because we made it over long distance. We didn't make it in the same studio, and so
yes. Okay, so you were making it from long distance, but like over like a Zoom or something. Like, are you just talking to each other like as you're doing it, like in chat, like, or sending files, or doing the postal service?
Yeah. So I am really, really excited, if you can't tell already, with the Postcard Project, with different ways of collaborating that kind of require people to connect across time. Like that's a really, really exciting concept. And so when, you know, everything was like remote by necessity, I started to get really interested in this idea of being what co-presence meant, being present with someone at the same time, simultaneous co-presence. And I started to kind of wonder if you could have a sense of co-presence without being temporally like together or spatially together, like what that could look like to just listen and imagine and collaborate in that way across space and across time. I know that this probably sounds
not at all. You're in a safe cosmic space. Everyone here is following along perfectly.
And and so that's what we did. We made the whole album that way. We literally just said like you know, we didn't have a ton of time, large buckets of time. So it was 1 hour a week. We would just each commit to going into our studio to work on this, and we would listen to each other, even though we weren't connected by computers or technology. We would just like imagine what the other person was doing. Knowing that the other person is there is enough, even if they're on the other side of the world and, you know, you don't know what they're doing. Knowing that they're doing something is enough to bring that kind of like magic sparkle of intention. And I kid you not, crazy things happen. And we would both do it. And then we would literally just take our files and composite them. And like, okay, people, if you don't believe me, go listen to the first track on this record. It was made in this way. And it sounds so much like we are playing together in the same room, but we were both just isolated and put these tracks on top of each other. And yeah, it's amazing. I think what it speaks to is that we all have this really like a really deep ability to kind of be intuitive and tune into the world around us and listen in a really deep way, maybe more than we think. And that's kind of like a big part of my creative drive these days. I hope I'm making a little bit of
100% sense. You're getting high fives and thumbs up in the chat. Everyone's following along. We're just like, yes, someone gets it, you know?
Okay.
No, I'm so glad we brought this up so that you could expound on it, because I've been seeing your posts about it and following along, but like getting this more like detailed breakdown of this exact process, hearing you explain it is obviously like really inspiring. Just hearing kind of you're kind of going into your mind and remembering it and sharing it with us. It's also part of the time conversation.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, we didn't do any kind of pre-planning in terms of like, we didn't talk about key or length or duration or that's the same thing, I guess, or tempo or instrumentation. But we were really, this kind of speaks back to our conversation at the beginning about blueness and redness and all that. We were united in our creative concept because we had spent years talking about time and talking about what nowness means and what memory is all about. And, you know, I actually did my my doctorate basically on this topic. So I'm not going to go too deep, but I could.
You think we don't want it? We want it all.
And just all the different ways that you can, you know, create patches that, like, one of the reasons I'm so fascinated with feedback is because to me, it's a form of time travel, right? Yes, when you create a feedback-based patch that's like recycling the past and, you know, everything, all of the different nodes that you can tap are like these little now points, these little moments that you can kind of engage with the sound in some interesting and very unpredictable way. So anyway, I go on.
That's exactly it. No, but that's exactly it. The idea when you're playing with time, which is just a function of the music, right? Yeah. We're not talking necessarily about like, ooh, I'm playing with time. No, like time is literally just an aspect of the experience of creating music. So that aspect being played with becomes unpredictable. We're always talking about this. So totally. That's why we like playing with feedback machines and tape specifically.
Yeah.
Because the organic nature of the deterioration and the unpredictable nature of the wobbles and the flutters.
Right.
And especially when things start getting layered.
Right.
You create a third space or third time or third sound that cannot be created almost. Like it has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you have to be there like a tree falling in a forest to experience it.
Yep. Totally.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah. So that was it. I mean, that was the, I saw someone mention Frippertronics. Yeah, totally.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
kind of time lag accumulation, you know, style thing where you're just capturing more and more moments of nowness and then kind of expanding that. Like, I like to think of it as like, if a now is like a point like this, like the smallest possible point, then by kind of folding and accumulating these moments, you just get to kind of like dilate and expand that like now point, you know?
This is our theory of the creation of all. Which
universes are created with
not a spiritual thing, a science thing, but we're always talking about, you say it best, about the point in the Big Bang. Because I'm going to read the chat while you explain that.
Oh man, you really
I'm like, explain the Big Bang the way you explained it to me the other day. There's something about a point. Everything came to a point, and there was a singular
basically
point.
All the energy in the universe
was at a point. Yes, all the energy was focused at a point.
A point. And then a explosion happened.
Right.
And from there, it's, you know, just been
sort of like the energy collapsing on itself. Didn't have anywhere else to go, so it had to go out. This is my like, that moment, children's book version.
Time as we know it was created, really, if you think about it.
Right. Yeah. From that point, everything's like measured from that point. So I'm trying to read this. The chat is on fire, everyone. We've really lit up the chat with this time conversation, clearly. Mm-hmm. So Helper Monkey wants to know, how much of that intuition do you think is based on knowing your interlocutor? How different would the sparkles, I like sparkles of creativity be in a co-present collaboration with a new synth friend or an unknown synth friend? Some even numbers get randomly assigned to work in pairs of... Oh, I see. This is sort of like a proposal. I get it now. But that's definitely a question. Oh, we lost her. We're going to go back in. That was perfect, like bleep bloop moment. When we weren't actually in the middle of like something magical, if you will. So, Helper Monkey, I think you're asking, why did this do this? Every time it comes back, it does something different.
Yep.
It's so weird. It has a mind of its own. Basically saying, I think we actually answered this question already. Sarah said that they had been talking for years about time beforehand. So
yeah, we had a lot of, am I back? Just disappeared into the void again.
You did, because the Zoom kicked us out and we
You're
weren't
back and better than ever.
I'm just trying to get, you're back. For sure.
We have a very good friendship and a very, a lot of kind of groundwork laid. But, and I love that you asked this question. I have done this with complete strangers. I've also done this with, I've also done this with really large groups of people. I did it with an undergraduate class at a university I used to teach at, and there was 20 students, and they were all first year undergrad students learning electronic music for the first time. So they were like in VCV rack and, using samplers and stuff. And they were like 2 months into this. And I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And it was amazing. I will say that one, because it was 20 layers, I did have to do a little bit of mixing here and there. Whereas usually I literally just composite the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Got cats everywhere.
They understand.
This is a different cat.
This is a different cat.
Zoo is right here. Got Mango.
I was going to say that has to be Mango. Helper Monkey, just to let you know, if you can see this still, that the answer was most likely yes, but she's also done this with complete strangers, and it all is just unpredictable, and that's like the fun of it, right?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that everyone needs to have is like a really sincere intention. I think that's like the only requirement. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I'm gonna get this cat down.
Although
it's a cat show, okay, guys, just embrace it,
folks. I don't think anyone minds though, right?
No one.
But yeah, I think that's it. Like a sincere intention to actually give it a try, right? To actually say, okay, I'm going to really, really with earnest sit and like imagine that I can take my ears off of my head and like put them out into the corners of the room and then beyond, so that I might actually be able to hear what this person's doing, even though they're 1,000 or 3,000 miles away or whatever. And that just takes for some people, a little bit of a suspension of kind of what they think is possible in the moment. And then just like an intention to be like, yeah, I'll give it a try. And if they do that, it always works. It always works. It's been mind blowing.
Wow. So you're doing a large scale, long-term experiment. I
guess I am.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So something that I've been messing around with lately in that regard is if you take the intention out of it completely,
oh wow,
is there still a magic that can happen that's similar to what we describe? And the way that my experiment was basically to record stuff onto tape loops and almost like intentionally not try to play anything that would go well on top of another, like just play stuff that like maybe it's not in the same key or whatever.
Well,
it's
that
just, like,
is an
just
intention
randomly
in itself.
Play. Yeah.
Okay, that's what you're. Okay, sorry.
So just like record tape loops that have nothing to do with each other, and then even like put space between them, like record them on different days, and then basically like use them to make a piece of music, like basically play like pieces and resample them or whatever, like recut them to a piece of tape or whatever you want to do. But basically like, just take these like little bits, because like the thing that forces you to do is, a tape loop in itself is this very unique, sort of physical, electromechanical item, so it's never going to be perfect. It's going to be like, just a sort of like living, breathing thing that plays different every time. Really, if you have like, if the tape's too tight or something like that, it's going to be kind of pull on itself and like change pitch and stuff. Like, it's just not going to be like a constant thing. So it's got that variation going on, but then like, basically just taking, a bunch of tape loops that you recorded out of stuff. Like I'll try to like wake up in the morning and like do one a day and like not like almost like try to forget what it was the day before.
Well, you're in the new now, so.
Exactly. And then, take that stuff and like see if there's still magic that like comes from you, like, re-looping it or, whatever, dump it in and do a DAW even, like, you know, just like see if you can recompose into something usable. And I find that it's still, you know, it's still there somehow. I'm just these, like, you know, like I have like a drum kit pulled up on like an old sampler or synth or something. I'll just be like, boop, 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 boop. You know, and then
but
like
that's really the question.
I'll record that pattern back in, and it'll like be the perfect beat that like goes with my thing that I recorded like yesterday.
That doesn't seem real. I was gonna say, I feel like the real question there is, can you do anything without intention, even if your intention is to not have an intention? And I feel like that is similar to questions about being co-present in time. Can you be intentional about not having an intention? I don't know. I don't know.
That's what I'm trying to fuck with.
I don't know.
That like that is something I'm really trying to like. I don't know. You know, I feel like it's Buchla's fault. You know, with the random everywhere. You know, you get into this like mindset where you're, you know, source of uncertaintying everything, and you sort of want to like, you know, just create those sort of scenarios. You get into this sort of like rabbit hole of
how random can you get? How much can I not be involved?
Obsessed with the random aspect. Yeah, I start going like, woo, a little cuckoo.
So then that leads me to a question for you, Sarah. Where are you at on the spectrum of like AI taking over everything? Like, how much are you playing with it? How much are you interested in it? Are you fully anti? That's on the other side of this spectrum I just made up.
No, I don't know if I have a lot to say about AI, to be honest. I'm not disinterested in it. I'm also not particularly preoccupied with it at the moment.
Okay. Well, that answers it.
I do find, you know, like I've definitely done some work with some, you know, machine learning stuff. And I think it's fascinating, but it's not a core part of my creative practice anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have anything too intelligent to say about it.
I feel the same way. I feel like this conversation is making me feel like that's where it's heading. It's this idea of like questioning the sort of, I want to use the right science terms, but I'm not going to, so I should just give up. We start to question like the bonds of time. I feel like it leads me to start thinking about how AI is already like interwoven into our lives. And I don't have an opinion about it, and I'm not doing anything about it either. So it sounds like we're kind of in a similar part of the spectrum that I just made up, where we know it exists and we know that there's possibilities and we may have had some exposure to it, but we're not like seeking it out or trying to learn more about it, or we're not like inventing things with it or trying to bring about the singularity sooner.
No, you know, the extent of my work, it's been a little bit of machine learning stuff, and it's been mostly around like gestural controllers, like basically being able to train a controller that like this means something different than this, which means something different than this, you know, and that's kind of, which is awesome and like so cool that you can just do that. And like, you know, the ability to be able to tune a gesture in a room or to a particular webcam or something like so quick and calibrate it and everything. That's fascinating. I love that. But that's sort of where, that's about it. I feel like it's the tippest tip.
It really is a tippy tip.
The tippiest tip.
But I feel like that makes me question like the sort of rigidity that makes me think about. It makes me go, ugh, like I wouldn't be able to experience what we just discussed, the unexpected, unpredictable randomness of improvising. To me, I can't see how to fit that into something I have to program. I feel like that then removes the whole concept altogether, which I think is probably tying me into like a segue into modular synth specifically.
Okay.
I think is where that's going. The idea that having a synth that you have to program versus one that you can manually patch and tweak is obviously connected to this rise of improvisation. It seems to go hand in hand with the modular synth community from what we've explored so far. Like we've never seen.
Yeah. Although I guess part of me is thinking that there's not, I don't know if for me, there's too much of a difference between writing a program that behaves in a certain way versus patching a patch that behaves in a certain way.
There's the tie-in. Yes.
Yeah, I think because, the main thing that I think about is more so than when I'm thinking about sound. Like I do think a lot about sound, obviously, but honestly, the more important aspect or the more exciting aspect for me when I'm designing patches or programs, I'm thinking about the interaction, like what's going to happen when I do X, Y, or Z, and how, and to speak about time again, how will that gesture or that input kind of manifest in time or through time? Actually, Buchla is always one of the people I reference when I talk about this stuff, because there's a really great interview that he did in Polyphony magazine from, I've got it somewhere on my computer.
Very cool.
Probably the 60s. I don't know. I don't remember the exact year.
We believe you.
And he talks about in the like unbelievable potential that we have with electronic instruments, with understanding and kind of like harnessing the fact that there is an input structure, which is like the thing that you interact with, right? The input structure could be keys, it could be touch plates, it could be a joystick, it could be whatever. There's an output structure, which is the thing that makes the sound. So it could be your speakers or whatever, something that vibrates and transduces vibration into the air. And then there's this there's the actual thing that connects them together, right? Something that makes the input go to the output. Sounds really obvious. Yeah. And you're like, well, yeah, of course that's when if you think about it like a trumpet, let me pull up.
Do it. Yes.
You have like your input structure, right? Which is like your valves that you can like interact and change pitches and input structure here, and your output. And the thing that connects them together is like the tubing and the actual horn. And with an acoustic instrument, it's all the same object. They're like necessarily connected, right? But with an electronic instrument, they're not necessarily connected. So one input does not have to equal one output, right? And that's the beauty about, in my opinion, of modular synthesis, is that like you could get 50 people to put together 50 modular systems. And even if you told them they all had to be the same size, they would all be completely different. And you would probably, not literally you, but one person would choose to interact with it in one way, and another person would choose to interact with it in another way. And we could all produce a sine tone at a certain frequency, but someone might decide to code it in Super Collider, and someone else might decide to use a module, and someone else might decide to use a tone generator. And that is so exciting to me, because it's like, it just opens up this like really personal way of programming or thinking about your instruments. So that was a long tangent, but
I loved it.
The kind of like the fact that you can separate those things means that you can have one input, like you can push one button and it can do 15 things. And some of them can be linear and they can just go boop to the output, and others can fold back over, right? And start to cycle and loop and get stuck. Or they can split, and, instead of it just being like, I hit a button and one sound happened, I hit a button and like a whole trail of sounds happen, right? Like a one-to-many kind of thing. So to me, that's why I was like, I think programming and patching, they're very similar, because basically what you're doing, or what I think about doing, is like you're designing a kind of interaction architecture, if that makes sense, or like ecosystem.
Yes.
I push a button or I touch a touch plate, and like, how does the instrument respond and like change as a result of that input? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think that,
like a UI.
Yeah, totally. And it just gets me really excited to think about how it doesn't have to be like a one-to-one relationship. That's like my number one thing when I'm working with synths, is I'm always like, okay, how can I make this like multi parametric in some way. Like, how can I make this single physical action that I'm doing produce like 4 or 5 different kinds of differently scaled control voltage or data that I can use in 4 or 5 different ways.
Right. Yeah.
It's like super nerd villa.
For some reason, the module that came to mind when you described that is the 245. And like, if you go in the analog input, you know, you could address the, you know, 4 rows of 5 stages that could all be set to different settings. And, you know, you could sort of address those however you need them, you know, throughout your set. Yep. So that was totally just something that really, for some reason, like I just keyed into, you know, that the description of that module, like just beamed at me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Another favorite example of mine is like just any kind of envelope follower that also has a transient, like a threshold, kind of gate output is like a perfect example of this, because you give it one input, like your microphone input or your audio input, and it gives you this beautiful continuous voltage that moves with the loudness and dynamic profile of your input. But you can set these thresholds and it will give you these momentary gates, right? Or triggers whenever you go over that threshold. So that's a perfect example of getting 2 different kinds of like meaningful control out of one input. And then you could take that further and run it into some kind of voltage processor and like invert one, right? Or do something like that. And so now you have 3 just by going like into a microphone. You can have like 3 really interesting things happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You get a lot of mileage out of one input,
which is hugely
source.
Important to me, because I'm usually playing my trumpet into a synth, right? And so I don't really have my hands free. So I have to be really economical about how I can control things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a very unique challenge.
Right. The other thing is I also don't have a lot of brain. Like, I'm going to be honest. It's like my brain overloads first, usually before my hands. Like playing trumpet's enough, like bandwidth load. Absolutely. And then I'm like, I can't remember what I'm supposed to do. Knobs, forget about it. So I have to try to like centralize things on the trumpet for myself.
Well, it helps you because a lot of what we're talking about is setting up parameters, setting up your sonic playground, if you will, and then allowing yourself to like leave and just be with what happens so that you can react to what's happening rather than thinking about what you want to happen or what should happen or what could happen or what you thought you were going to do. Right. Because when you're in that now moment, what's happening now can only happen in that moment. So if you're not there experiencing it, then is it even happening? I mean, you can only, sorry, this is me going on my weird tangent of how I think of improvising. I can only improvise by stepping into it, because once I'm there, I can play with what's happening and then play with what's happening and then play with what's happening. But it's a conduit, if you will. Yeah. So I think that answered I was sort of, I guess, asking a question and trying to find this idea that I felt inspired by what we were talking about with, can you still improvise? Can you still be free? Can you still have happy accidents if we're involving AI? And I think we answered that in a very unique way that tied in all of the threads that we've been playing with.
I'm glad. I was worried I was maybe just rambling about something I think is cool, but I'm glad that
it's got to be
somehow closed a loop.
Similar to what we were talking about with like the graphic score and improvising, is whether you think you're just babbling, like everything is being pulled together in this like story that we're all weaving, because we're just being present with it. That's why we kind of like to say that this is like, we're not even sure what to call this, because it's almost like we're improvising this experience as well. Like we don't have a script. We don't have an interview. So it's not a podcast. It's just, we know people on the internet and we want to have a different kind of temporal, spatial experience with them in a way that's like just bringing this, lifting sort of the veil of the internet in a way. Even though this is broadcast on the internet, it's like, I don't know, we're flipping it and folding it and creating something new.
Yeah, I love it.
So I think it just goes hand in hand with, like, obviously we're on the same wavelength and the chat is understanding it, because when you're have any association with synths or modular synths and the idea of playing with time and improvising, like, you're just, I don't know if we're all coming from a place of being interested in time and space, or if it drives you there, or if they just go hand in hand, but it seems to be a very common theme that comes up.
Totally. Yeah, which is awesome.
I know, it's my favorite part. I'm like, right. We're having on our synth friends because we know we have other conversations to have besides let's talk about music and synths. There's more underneath that we want to get to that's a little too hard on just typing on the internet.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I'm going to take the seriousness of all of this down several notches right now and just ask, what is your favorite synth right now, like in the moment? Like, what is, just if you had to choose
something that she has and is
one
using,
synth today to like,
or the Desert Island synth, those are
take with you and just, you know, be like, I'm really into this one right now, you know, like what would that be?
Okay, so this isn't like a forever, this is it. Because I have a different answer.
No.
It's just
not a forever synth. It's sort of just like, which one's getting you
right now?
What's your flavor of the week, you know, if you will?
I can totally, I would almost be able to. So I'm really, I'm like really into small, very small setups to the point where I kind of sometimes get, people will like, I've gone to modular synth shows with like tiny setups and people have kind of like laughed at me and not made fun of me in an actually mean way, but just like, really? Like, that's it? That's all you have? Because, you know, there's always these really impressive sprawly synths, which I'm down with. I mean, look, I have, you know, but in terms of actually performing,
yes,
I always pull out just a couple modules, and I really like really, really small setups because it forces me to tap more into like my voice and my creative thought and rely less on the tools. I mean, it forces, like, if you don't have a lot of tools, you kind of have to be more creative with what you do with them. And so it's mostly just like a, it's just this kind of like creative limitations that I do kind of thing to fuel, something that I've never done before, right? Like if I'm just going to play this one module or this one, you know, pile of rocks, and I'm going to play that for 30 days and I'm going to make a different sound every day for 30 days. Like, you're going to do some pretty interesting things with that pile of rocks. You know?
Oh my gosh. I talk about this all the time. I love this.
Yeah. So that's generally what I have is like something on rotation that is a really small compact thing. And I'll typically keep it, you know, if I'm playing a lot of shows or working on an album or something, then it'll stay like that for a while, and I'll really get to know it in a deep way, like for a year or longer. I just set a new one of these up for a series of shows that I did recently, and it's so much fun that I think it might be my new little thing. And unfortunately, it's like this big, it's really small, and I can't just hold it up and show all of you because I don't have it in this room, but it is, it's a Make Noise XPO, a Morphogene. Honestly. Oh, the O Control, the
yes,
touch plate controller, and like the Optimix low pass gates, and some output modules. It's like the most bare. Oh, and maths. That's an important ingredient. And that's it. And so it's just that. And it's like, oh, hang on. It has been delivered to me.
Oh, I love this magic delivery.
Oh, and I'm wrong. Maths is not part of it. So I'll explain that.
Yay,
Maths
this
was
is so
part
exciting.
of something. Thank you. That was really nice. The fairy, the modular angel. So there's a filter, the Carrier filter. So let me just hold this for people to see.
So cool.
But honestly,
and you're just in the 4MS little pod case. Yeah.
And this is just a blank because I needed to fill the
space.
I could put something in there, but so it's just like, the XPO, which is an oscillator, the Morphogene, which is like a, you know, granular sample Mangler cooker, the Ikari stereo filter, which is like this crazy sounding resonant filter that also has a envelope follower and a VCA, and then the Optimix, which is these like 2 low pass gates and then an output module. So it's like very simple. And there's no, like, you probably, synth folks are probably like, where's the modulation? Right. But then there's the O control, which is a big part of that.
Yes.
And the really big thing about this setup, and the reason why it's working so well for me right now, is because all of the modulation and the control voltage is coming from me. So I'm doing a lot of stuff where I just played a bunch of shows, and the patch that I had was like a really, really gnarly feedback patch with the XPO. So that, and there was a couple of different places that I had control from the O control, either pressure or the gate output or the dynamic gate, like different outputs from the O control. And every time I would play a different touch plate, it would, like, something completely different would happen because of the feedback web on the XPO. So that gave me this really nice, like, ability to perform and play the instrument in a way that feels immediate and feels like I am actually doing something, and it's not just this machine like rambling on its own. Like I was the one making it go or not go. But the result I would get would be very, very surprising and unpredictable. So that it was almost like a duo partner, which I love. And then, you know, if something would happen in the moment and I would hear it, I would have the ability to be like, okay, let's linger here a little bit and let's, you know, adjust some other parameters and kind of play with this a little bit more. It was really rewarding. So I think I'm going to stick with this for a while and kind of see where it leads me. It's a strange pairing, a strange combination, but I'm amazed at how broad the sonic world is that I'm able to get out of this. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm not using the filter to filter any sounds. I'm only using it as part of the feedback loop with the oscillator, with the XPO. So by doing that, you're able to like shape and scale and attenuate some of the signals before they go back into the XPO, which just gives you a lot more fine-tuned control over how the feedback responds, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So does that answer? Does that satisfy?
Yeah, that was an incredible response to that question.
The filter is the only one that I hadn't really heard of, the Ikari, and we just watched Ikari XB as our last sci-fi movie this past Saturday. So I wonder if it was named after that.
Yeah, I don't know. It does have some pretty cool little like twinkly, like when you turn it on, these are, oh, it's hard to see, but these are all kind of like little twinkly stars.
Ooh.
Which is kind of cute. It's a stereo filter. I mean, it sounds great. It's very resonant. So you can definitely make it self oscillate, which to me is like a really important aspect of the filter. You can like really overdrive it, which is really helpful for feedback when you're using it in the feedback. Because again, I'm not actually filtering any sound. And it has a bunch of different outputs, which is also really helpful as well. Like an envelope follower output and a couple other things. Yeah, but it could be, I think, honestly, these modules are awesome, but like what I always say this because I really believe that it's important in the modular world is like, these could be any things. Like they're awesome. And I love the people who made these modules. And I think they're a lot of fun, but like you could get to really, really gratifying and similar awesome sonic worlds with like any combination of these things or any oscillator, any, you know, it's all about kind of how you're like piecing them together and patching them together and that kind of thing.
And then what happens in the moment.
Yeah. And how you're responding in the moment. Totally. That's a big part of it. Can I post a picture of it on Instagram? I will try to remember to do that. Feel free to message me though and ask and DM me and I'll send you a picture.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
but
sure.
You have to remind me.
Right. So that whole concept was built around you preparing for a show or a series of shows, or it just happened unrelated, or?
It was about, so I just got back from this series of shows I did in Baltimore. Actually, I have a YouTube video coming out about this.
Ooh.
In, like, I'm not sure, a week or two maybe. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's basically like a deep dive into how I prepare for improvised live performances with modular. So I'm talking about like why I chose this setup in more depth, why and how I'm patching the way I'm doing. And I break down this feedback patch that I just shared with you, but it's actually patched, so it's easier to understand.
Right,
well,
right.
Dwoger's, your question will be answered by this video, even more in depth, up close,
much more
visuals.
Depth. Yeah. The other thing that I love to do, just to be fully, just to be thorough, is I also love using my computer. So right now with this setup, I usually will also bring, this is what I did for these shows, is I also brought my computer running a max patch that allows me to do a little bit of processing of the sound. Because, there's no, the morphogene is totally, and, the filter, depending on how you use it, those are sound processors, but things like spatialization, panning, I brought a similar setup to a show that I was doing in quad, and I did all the quad panning on my computer. It helps a lot, helps to keep things small, right? Some reverbs and delays and things like that I run in Max, and then it gives me just the ability to kind of offload some stuff and to not always use it. That's the other thing I really like, is that I don't have to always have those as part of the sound world. I can kind of make them momentary and bring them in and out. Yeah.
Right. It's about the economy of space and staying creative without being overwhelmed by all the buttons and switches and controllers to try to make something happen. And a lot of
it's really boring. It's like I have to fit it in a small suitcase to go on an airplane.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's good. The limitations always, I find that I always do more interesting things, and I always have a more gratifying musical experience when I force myself to work in a really, really small system, even to the point where I look at it at first, like with this one, I put the modules in because I like them all. I was like, this will be weird and fun. And then I was like, this is impossible. I can't make a 45-minute set with like no modulation sources. Like, it's not going to work, but it does. It just took me some time to kind of coax it out.
So that's interesting. What was like kind of inspiring you to, or what were you hoping to get from this specific setup versus trying a lot of things until you got it, right? Like you stuck with it for a while.
That's something I do. I'm a little stubborn in that way. When I have an idea, I really believe a lot in like, we're going back to the woo-woo here.
Yes.
I really believe a lot. This is something I talk to a lot with my students too, is like honoring your creative impulses and your creative ideas. And so if something comes to you and you're like, that seems so cool, like I want to try this idea, whatever it might be. It could be, just a idea for how you want to produce a track, or idea for a modular setup, or whatever it might be. There's some, or a concept, like I had this idea to write a piece about, I don't know, like bicycles in the rain. Like I just, whatever.
Yes.
It could be anything, but like the idea, the whole point is to honor it because it came to you for some kind of reason. Right.
Yeah.
And to see it through, at least see it through and see what happens. Right. And it's really tempting, and it can be really easy to feel like, oh, what was I thinking? Like, there's no modulation. That's not going to work. Like, I got to swap out some of these things and make a more balanced, proper system. Or like, what was I thinking? Bicycles in the rain? Like, that doesn't make any sense, and to kind of write it off and move on to something that you think is more legit or more like correct, or something that's more valid. But that little weird creative spark came to you for a reason. So I think if you just like, see it through, often something really cool happens. So that's why I just stuck with it. Cause I was like, I don't know anything. The XPO was like really new to me. So I felt like I was just getting to know it, and that was exciting. And I wanted to see what would happen.
No, I love that you actually had like, sort of a belief behind what you were doing and why you were doing it sort of reminds me of our conversation about intentions.
Yeah, totally.
That, you set these limitations, which we talk about a lot in these conversations. It always comes up that, like, we live in the world of you can have anything, anytime, whatever you want. So we have to come up with ways to set limitations. And I love when it's something like it has to fit the overhead bin or something like that.
Yeah.
Like those limitations are always really fun because you're not imposing them. And I think a lot of times when you impose your own limitations, like you're susceptible to, oh, maybe I was wrong about that and I won't, no. And then you get lost in all the questions. And if you just stick it out, you're actually going to find more answers on the other side of, like, kind of banging your head against a wall for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's powerful. I even do this with, projects. Like I'm working on, if any of my, I know a couple of my patrons are in the chat right now, so they're all very deeply aware of this. I'm working on this opera, an electroacoustic opera, which is also about time.
Yes, that's right. We must talk about the opera.
And I've been working on it for so long because it's the most ambitious, largest scale creative project I've ever attempted to create. It involves a ton of people. It's a very long form piece. There's a lot of factors, but also it's just like creatively very challenging for me. And I am finding myself like I'm having to kind of like coach myself through what I just shared with you both,
right,
about honoring your creative intention, because I'm going back through, like, now I'm working on these moments and scenes and pieces in the opera that I started writing 2 years ago. And I'm going back through my notes and the scores and everything. And I'm like, where was I going with this? Like, and I'm so tempted to just go to the new shiny object. Like, I'm so much more, I hear this all the time. Like, oh, but I'm so much, like, I know more now. Like, I'm so much better at it now. Let me just erase and like do it. But then it's not the same piece. Right. So I'm really like, okay, for some reason, that sequence of words or that sequence of notes or that idea spoke to me back then enough that I wrote it down and I recorded this little mock-up and I like went knee deep into the like creative waters. So I'm going to see it through. And it's a bit of a tug of war. It's really interesting, but I think it's just a really cool thing to do.
Wow. Yeah. It's extremely ambitious. And I imagine fueling a lot of creativity in other projects and other areas of life, to just have this. I mean, we just, our most recent podcast episode was about Stockhausen, who spent, I think, 20 years on one of his pieces that he finished, I think, right before he died, which was also an opera, a cosmic opera. Super, super, super weird cosmic opera. Aren't they always? So that's what this is making me think of, is like, it drives you mad. You forget about it for a while. You have a spark. Somebody new comes into the project. It evolves. You wonder why you're doing it. How was this ever inspiring to me? I mean, I just imagine it's like it's an opera about you making an opera.
Right. And I also feel kind of compelled to just say that this doesn't replace the importance of knowing when to let things go too. Sometimes when I talk about this, people are like, yeah, but sometimes you just need to sometimes things don't work. And it is really important to be able to not be super precious and be like, I tried that. I went there. I explored it. It's not working for this piece. I'll save it for later. Or it's not working at all. It was a thing that got me to my next step. And that's important too.
Yes.
But it's all about like making that decision, knowing that you've fully explored it and you're not jumping ship just because of some other for me it would be like an insecurity, like, oh, is this too fill in the blank, like, is this too weird, is this too noisy, is this too like whatever. I want to make sure I'm never making decisions from that. So from that place, I'm always gonna like, okay, I loved this idea at one point, I'm gonna see it through, and then once I see it through, if it's not working and it's still not feeling right, then
it happened. The mid-conversation cut off. It happened. So sorry. We've been doing so well with not having that happen, but it was bound.
then you let it go, just like I let myself go into the internet. I was like in full like gesture. I was like, okay.
I love you came back in with it. That was perfect.
Yeah. Just suspended in time.
Incredible. That is a really good point. I was kind of hearing that for myself when we were talking about this of like, you know, there is a balance. There is a point at which, and it comes back to that idea of intuition. So the intuition that you had to explore this, you're also going to use that same intuition to know, hey, I need to put this on a shelf for a minute, or hey, this needs to go in the garbage, or I need to keep going with it. But it's all coming from that same point inside yourself.
Yeah, totally.
It's my cosmic bow on that conversation.
Love
and
it.
yes, the opera is epic. I love hearing about, you know, the process through your Patreon.
Speaking of that, actually, can I share something really exciting about Patreon and the opera?
I love it.
Okay, so I'm really nervous about this. It's very new to me, but I'm also really excited. So one of the biggest aspects of my Patreon community at the moment is around this opera, because it's the biggest project that I'm doing. So I'm sharing as much as I can about the process. And I was previously doing that in like kind of vlog style behind the scenes videos that I was making asynchronously as I was going. I was always like a couple weeks to a month off from what was actually happening, just because of the time it takes to like edit videos together and do all of the things, right? So I was really craving some kind of way to be really just like really transparent and immediate with my Patreon community about what I'm working on day to day on the opera. So what I'm starting next week is something that I'm calling open studio sessions, where basically I'm just opening a live feed into my studio while I'm working on whatever I happen to be working on in the opera that day. So it could be recording or tracking instruments. It could be like figuring something out with some aspect of the scoring. It could be mixing. It could be troubleshooting. It could be listening to the same clip 15 times or 50 million times and wondering what to do with it. But it's like a very kind of candid and vulnerable fly on the wall type of streaming thing. Yeah. And patrons will just be able to like, I'm just going to live stream it kind of like this. So there will be a chat for people, but the idea behind is that it's not scripted or planned, or it's not even really interactive. It's more of like, you're just getting to kind of come and like pull up a seat and watch whatever happens.
Yes.
the very honest view into that creative process.
It's reality TV.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, I love it because it's taking the idea that this whole thing is like a story of an opera, of just you making the opera. And it's taking that in like actually an applicable way. It's pretty crazy. That was a cool segue.
Pretty meta.
That's really exciting. We've had, I think this is our 7th conversation with this internet synth friend. And everyone so far has been like, what's it like to live stream? Should we live stream? And we're like, yes, it's the best. It will change you. It's like when you first started improvising, like you just are a different person on the other side of live streaming. You just are. And I can't explain it. And I don't know what it'll be like for you, but it's going to be amazing. So I'm super excited that you're making this announcement here, because we're so like pro.
Except for my Patreon community. Yay! They always know everything first, but otherwise...
Okay,
y'all are the first to hear. So
this is super exciting. Can you drop me either here or in that Zoom chat the link that will take people to your Patreon? Because I have the link to our post and I thought it would have like the slug, but it doesn't. And if I open my browser, it'll slow our connection down.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow. So Crawl Space, amazing. You're going to start streaming soon. Hell yeah. We spent a long time. Thank you, Sarah. I probably could have just figured that out myself. I'm so sorry.
I think that's
so obvious.
Correct. Yeah, that's
You don't say.
When we first started streaming, we did something similar, and we would stream early in the morning. You
brought it up. I wasn't sure if you were going to even talk about this.
Weird.
We did it too.
We were streaming super early in the morning and then in the afternoon. So we would kind of create like a structure to our day, which I found really helpful around like, we are going to be in the studio, and sometimes you just have to like sit yourself down in there.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know if you're in a good mood or where you were at, and picking up the pieces from last session and all of that stuff.
Are we doing it anymore? No, we are not.
But we would create that sort of schedule for ourselves. It was Monday through Friday, and we were streaming morning and afternoon. And it was just us figuring out how to make our next album. Like, what were we going to do? And I don't even know if it was fun to watch, but it's how we got started live streaming. And it was very much like fly on the wall as we like spend hours with the sampler or like something. Right. It's like troubleshooting and like making a whole song and then being like, I hate this.
It was the gnarliest shit like that gnarly. You would ever like imagine somebody trying to stream. Like I feel like it was like totally gnarly, dude. Like it was like the nitty gritty, gnarly, like MPC menus. Like, let me awkwardly switch back to the MPC and then go back to this other sampler.
Not to say that that's what your
try to show you what's happening on my old school, like CRT computer monitor. And then we're just going to go to the Buchla over here, but we're going to get like a really zoomed out view of it. Like off of one camera on this janky, like mic stand, like tripod thing.
It served its purpose though.
So
it will probably be all kinds of...
It'll be all kinds of experimentation because you are going to be experimenting. So are you going to have a set schedule for yourself so that this becomes... Are you doing this like Monday through Friday, or is it just whenever it happens?
Yeah, I'm only starting, to be honest. So with my Patreon community, we do a lot of monthly live events. Like we have a hangout, we do a virtual listening party. And then, so I'm starting, I mean, I'm in my studio working on this regularly, but I'm going to start as an experiment to just open it up one time a month, just to sort of start there and see how it goes. Get feedback from the community, see if it sucks, see if it's awesome.
It'll be awesome.
And just sort of go from there. You know,
you might hate it though, I guess I would say. It's fair to give yourself that leeway.
Yeah, it's a very, it definitely feels very like simultaneously kind of invigorating and terrifying because it's very vulnerable. It's just sort of like it will be all of the parts of the creative process that like people never get to see. And I think that that's really important because I think a lot of the time we only get to see the like filtered, here's the 50th track that I'm releasing publicly. And it can be really, people can feel really discouraged because they just see the shiny final thing and they don't see the steps. Right. So I'm trying to be really transparent and open about the steps, but I'm also like, I know my creative process sometimes is like very, very messy and very, like not a straight line. And so I'm just hoping that it's like tolerable for people, but I think it will be. I think you're going to find people are way more open to the weird ideas that you have and way more like validated by seeing how you work. Yeah. Well,
than you would ever expect.
Every time I've ever been able to see someone like another artist work and really get into their craft, it's always fascinating, even if they're just working on troubleshooting some weird tech issue, you know, it's like amazing to see how they think, you know, and just
and there's nothing, like you said, there's nothing like that. Because as soon as you take that and do something with it, edit it, extract it, take it out of time, post it later, now it's something else.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, even if you see a clip of this conversation later, it's not the same as being here in the chat right now.
Which is what that reminded me of how like we discovered that editing long improvisations.
Are we going to talk about this theory we have
for like the future album that we're working on?
We're playing around with a theory right now as we're working on our next album. We've flipped it a couple times because we've like tested it and then tested the reverse of it. So like we have this, when we made our last album, it was all improvised and we edited it for sure. Like 100%. That is not, some things are like the pure thing, but we definitely went in and edited it because of the way we recorded it. Because talk about intention, we didn't know we were making an album. We didn't know that we were allowed to create this way. So it was like the process of us realizing like we have to improvise to feel alive, and that we are going to give ourselves permission to make music this way, even though it's like harder to listen to.
They're pretty big blocks though, I would say.
Yeah. But because we did it that way, we thought, okay, we're going to make our next album the same way. We have already figured out our process. We're going to record to tape, and then we're going to put it in the computer and we're going to edit it. We don't necessarily like have a lot of channels to work with. There's not a lot of like sub things going on, but definitely editing. So we started doing that, and then we were like, I think something is getting lost. Because the music that we're making, I would say specifically, is more hypnotic than collage, which I think the other album was more collage based. And this is more hypnotic. So like as we edit, we're like losing something, which reminds me of this process we're talking about when you're creating, of even if you're doing something and it feels wrong, it's actually going to be the way you get to the thing you're trying to figure out.
Yeah, totally.
So we were editing out those moments.
You're missing the bridge energy. Yeah, like
how we get there is like listening to how we get there, I feel like is part of hearing like the composition. And so we are wrestling with that idea right now. And that's why our album is taking so long.
I've like literally
it's like philosophical.
Don't cut anything, you know, or at least choose like a different starting point and leave all of that in, you know.
Like very, very minor edits. But then Gus was watching the like special features of Fahrenheit 451. Yeah, the sci-fi movie Fahrenheit 451. We were watching it on the stream, so Gus had the DVD out and he was watching the special features, and the editor was explaining how he figured this out in his process of editing this movie, and like that this movie changed everyone's lives that was part of it because of the way they made it, and they broke the rules, and like, you know, the popularity of it.
Well, he was saying that was sort of his philosophy in general.
Oh, it was.
Was just.
I thought he got to like really test this out.
He said that he implemented it in Fahrenheit.
That was me projecting.
But that he also just, that was something that he's learned, you know, through experience, that like when you start chopping things up, you're just losing something, you know, and it's hard to
like
put a
sometimes
finger
that's
on it.
Okay. Sometimes you want to.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, that was such a ramble. Such a ramble. Oh my gosh. Thank you for bearing with us as we got excited about ideas.
This stream has been very like just like chapters of, you know, like it almost feels a little bit like
talking about
a master class like cohort.
There you go. We're both excited to talk about these concepts that are not necessarily specific to, I guess when you think about like what are people going to talk about when it's a synth show, is like the gear they use. And we talked about that a little bit, but it's much more about process, I think.
Yeah.
Which gets me, I guess, talking about, more excited to talk about than to talk about the specs of something.
I love gear as much as the next person, but sure. I'm always like creative process and all of that kind of more the intangible aspect of all of it, the philosophical, conceptual, all of that stuff is like why I love the gear and like why I make music. I don't make music because of the cool gear, although I love it, but like that's not what's motivating me to get into the studio. Like cool ideas about like, you know, time travel and co-presence and blueness and all of that kind of stuff. That's like the driving force behind what I really am doing. And then it's so fun that I get to explore that and express those ideas on these instruments, if that makes sense.
I feel like that was a perfect
bow tie.
We did it. I want to know if there's any questions in the chat as we start to round the bases here with this conversation. I know there's a lot of conversation, but if there's anything specifically, like you have Sarah Belle Reid in front of you, what are your questions? Just make sure, leave it all on the floor. Okay. Just a lot of agreement. I always love to see a lot of lengthy agreement in the chat with what we're talking about. Yes. If you invite someone to patch your system, you will, like, all of these concepts will come to life for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. That's an incredible thing. Let me look. I got a patron in the chat holding me accountable, asking when the opera's coming out. Thank you. I see you. I appreciate you. I don't know.
That's a harsh question.
Real. I have no idea. It's you know, at the point that I'm at right now, it's fully composed. Well, okay, that's even a little tricky to say because I am definitely composing it a little bit as part of the editing or the mixing process.
Okay, that's fair.
It was originally designed to be a staged thing that would be performed live. That was how I was originally kind of writing it. And then we had a premiere set in LA in March 2020. And it was like the whole, like we had everything set up. We were doing it in, you know, we had everything, all the electronics were mixed in quad. Like it was really ready to go as a live performance version. It would have been a very early version though. Now in retrospect, the premiere obviously got canceled for reasons we all understand.
Wow.
And then I went through a very lengthy period of just feeling like, I think a lot of people just like what?
Sure.
What is happening? And I wasn't feeling motivated to like unearth this project that was supposed to have a live premiere and like live stream it. The people were suggesting that. And I was like, I just don't, it doesn't feel right. And then I had the idea a long time in to just take this as an opportunity to, you know, go deeper with it and to really make it like the piece that I want it to be. Cause you know, with a first live premiere of such a big work, there's always kind of compromises. You're like, well, I don't know, we can't exactly do that. So I'm going to let's just do the like mock-up version for this. And I was making a lot of compromises, but then I was like, wait, if I don't have to, like, let me just go ham on it from the beginning and do it exactly the way I want it to be as a studio album first. And then, which is what I'm working on now. And then once that's released, I will get together a group of amazing performers, hopefully the ones who are on the record, and we will figure out how to perform it live. We'll just reverse engineer it that way. And that sounded so much more exciting to me. And so that's what I'm doing. So I've like, you know, it's composed, but I'm definitely, as I'm mixing, I'm definitely giving myself the freedom to think, oh, you know, now that I've heard this, like it needs another voice or it needs a little bit of something different. And I'm going to go back and rework it. So it's definitely a cyclical or a tangled process. I've tracked all the instruments except for a little bit of trumpet left because the trumpet player is like really hard to schedule.
Really hard to pin down.
It's that thing of like, I could always do it. So it's hard to prioritize.
It's the worst. I know. It's awful. But anyway, but it's in progress. And a lot of the mixing is starting and yeah, it's exciting, but you know, it's well over an hour of music. And it's very, very hyper detailed and very like intricate. So I sometimes spend a week and a half like deep in the trenches working on something and I'll come out and be like, I made so much progress. And then I'll realize I have about 25 seconds of audio to share with people.
Wow.
But it's really nice.
Well, that's really the sort of, the silver lining of the way that this happened is that you got to have that instinct honored of, I think I want more time. I don't want to compromise. Yeah.
Yeah. It actually, as much as it really was a bit of a silver lining because I think that this project, I had been dreaming about it and like kind of cooking it in my brain and my heart for so many years. I think it deserved more. And it's been exciting to see how much more it's kind of matured, you know, now that I've had time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm excited about it. it's going to be, it's a lot of fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is epic. I love getting to hear more about that story and to know that there's going to be more to this journey and we're going to get to see it. And you said that's going to be like in the next couple weeks, you're probably going to do this live thing?
I'm starting it next week.
Oh, next week.
The tech stuff happens the way I'm hoping it will. The first one will be on Friday, next Friday.
That's so exciting. Okay, everyone, you heard it here. And
only
that is something only on Patreon. So I'm going to drop that link one more time. Everyone.
Dropping that link.
Check out Sarah's Patreon and go ahead and support so that you can have access to the live.
There's also a huge archive of previous behind the scenes vlogs.
Right.
We did recording sessions of some amazing musicians in LA. We did some recording in like this incredible studio in a barn. Gorgeous studio in the middle of winter in rural Ontario, like a couple hours outside of Toronto. It's just like snow everywhere. And this is a gorgeous timber barn that's been converted into a very nice studio with like multiple tracking rooms. And it's all heated by wood burning stove. It's just the most vibe that you could possibly want. Amazing. And I vlogged the whole thing. So if anyone's interested in that kind of behind the scenes stuff, that's all there.
Then that's just a bonus for all the other stuff you get for just being in the Patreon. Amazing. Yes, highly, highly recommend that. Just jump in that stream. There's a whole community there. And obviously you get access to a lot of what Sarah's working on. Oh my goodness. We covered a lot of ground here today. So I want to make sure, again, any last questions and anything that we need to mention or link to. Yes, thank you, Mr. RX. I'm so glad that we got connected on this wavelength that you wanted to be here tonight. Yeah, it got very deep.
More important than the destination. That's nice.
And for anybody, who missed it, we did sort of, I guess, premiere this collaboration composition performance. So I'll drop that link. It's in the Patreon too, but that's a direct link to the post where you can learn more about that postcard project that we talked about and our composition. All about time traveling. And let's make sure we get your Instagram in there. So give Sarah a follow on Instagram as well, because there's a lot of fun interaction going on there.
And thank you both again for your beautiful interpretation of the piece and just for being part of the community. It's awesome what you're doing. It's very inspiring. Oh my goodness. I can't handle that.
Thanks.
Thank you for obviously being a catalyst for all of those things. So appreciate it. It's definitely exciting to know that everyone's on their own path and doing their own thing, but every once in a while we connect and get to spark more creativity or just joy when a lot of people I talk to who aren't in the synth communities are pretty caught up in some unhappy places of the internet. And I'm always like, what do you mean the internet's a scary bad place? I'm having the best time. Everyone in the modular synth community is so fun.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I could tell stories about other scary corners, but maybe I'll save it for another time.
Yeah, we'll have to. I think someone said, when is she coming back on? So next time we'll tell you scary ghost stories about the internet. Yeah, Obama's Weed Man, definitely worth a re-listen. There was a lot of deep, philosophical conversations here that you could marinate on or use as a prompt to create some music. Remember, everyone, red circles. I want to get your assignments next week.
I have to ask, Sarah, are we synth friends?
Oh, right.
Of course. I didn't realize there was a possibility for that question to be a no.
Yeah, that's part of the deal. So
after all this, do we actually?
I don't know. It's a two-way answer, I guess.
Ooh, putting it back on us.
Well, that's usually it's sort of under the vibe of the show is we are always accepting of the person that we have on.
They're we would like to be synth friends. It's a proposal.
Accepting of us.
Oh, I love that.
Sort of the
Yeah,
deal.
let's continue to be synth friends. This makes me think of like, I haven't had someone ask. It makes me think of like being in grade like 2 or something and like sharing like M&Ms with someone and like that being the start of the most important friendship bond, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
You gave them the last like orange one or whatever.
Yes.
I'm glad you take it that seriously because
adorable.
It's certainly implied.
So
I'm seeing some red circles in the chat. It's really good.
Yes, thank you. Someone understood the assignment. We kind of started this obviously from intuition, and then it's just taking on a life of its own. And there's someone who seems to be connected to a lot of the people we've had on. So we've been calling him the Kevin Bacon of Synth Friends. If you understand that reference, I don't know. I don't know.
Honestly, when I think of Kevin Bacon, I just instantly think of like Footloose. But I'm sure there's more.
So there's this thing called 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. I'm so happy I get to talk about this. 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon is a game that was played on talk radio when I was growing up. So every morning, if I was getting driven to school or whatever, I don't know, I was always hearing this. Adults playing this game called 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, where they would somebody would call in and just say a random person, and then they would try to get 7 degrees to Kevin Bacon.
And they were usually successful, right?
And it was almost always 100% success.
So the Kevin Bacon of this stream is Grant Bouvier, also known as MIDI Lizard. And
so we always ask, do you want to be synth friends, and do you know Grant?
And do you know Grant?
I don't think I do.
Okay, that's really exciting. So like the secondary purpose of this is that we obviously, like if we get along and we want to be synth friends, then anyone else we've talked to, we probably want to make sure we're all in the synth friends universe together. So we always, for some reason now, we ask if you know Grant, and if you don't, then we'll send you his Instagram. He's also into Buchla, so we have that all in common. And then he becomes like a Kevin Bacon, and you'll find all of these other connections from him. That's just what'll happen.
Okay. I love it.
It's so weird. It's taking on a life of its own. So that's the full story. That's my full truth. Yes, MIDI Lizard is his name.
Yeah.
Grant Bacon. There it is.
Grant Bacon.
We did it.
I love that.
Oh my goodness. I think we just really enjoy like it's similar to like improvising. This will be my last weird thing I say.
Oh man, we got time for one more, ladies and gentlemen.
Just like
drive it home.
When you're improvising as a musician and then you start, everything becomes improv in life. Just like you see it in everything. And so this idea, right, that we just started this, it's becoming something else.
Yeah, I just had someone pick me up at the, I was going and playing in a festival the other day, and I had someone pick me up at the airport. And the first words out of their mouth were, well, this will be an improvisation. Because like, I don't think they were the person who was supposed to be there. And like someone missed a flight and like some other weird thing happened. And I was like, good. I feel immediately more comfortable when those are the words that I am greeted with, right? Other than have the plan. And I'm like, oh God, I'm just going to screw the plan up.
No plans. No, that's a really good point. When you meet someone in the wild who brings up improv, I'm always like, oh, I'm not alone in the universe. Yeah. So that's really all this is about. So thank you so much for joining us. I know the chat had a great time. There's a lot of love for you, and just, thanking you for being here as well. We have very well-behaved guests today. I appreciate that.
Thank you, everyone. Pleasure. I love Bacon, Lizard, Red Circle, Trumpet, Unicorn, Moon. That cat looks exactly like
wow.
me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think those emojis are actually exactly what the conversation was.
Yeah. Maybe in
Wait,
reverse.
is this an episode of Ozarks with those symbols?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if anyone's seen that show, but they use symbols at the beginning of every episode.
Well, thank you for clearing that up for us.
But they're very, very, very simplistic, like those designs. But yes.
I love it.
So let me just drop your Instagram one more time. I love throwing the links in the chat. Everybody, don't forget, we're joining the Patreon. We're following on Instagram. We're watching the live streams. We're getting the Now album. Okay, everyone.
Yes.
Let's do that. Dwozark. Amazing. This is going off the rails. We have to shut it down. Okay.
Dwozark. All right.
This is all improv, you guys. I love it. Okay, well, our Zoom is about to kick us out, so we're going to say goodnight for now, but we're officially Synth Friends. And one last thing is that we will ask you to eventually recommend someone to hop on one of these with us to keep the chain going.
Love it. Great.
So that's it. That's what you'll hear from us.
Yeah, so be thinking about somebody you want to throw under the bus.
You want to throw into the void and see what happens.
Awesome.
Oh, goodness. Well, you know, all the best energy your way for all the amazing things you're doing. And thank you again so much. So glad we're connected, and we will see you on the internet.
Yeah. See you out there.
Till next time. Okay, so thank you all so much for being here and for being so cool. We know Sarah is very cool, and we all just really wanted to be cool for her. So thank you for helping us achieve that goal. What an amazing and fun, super fun, this is what I love about these streams is I really, 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 really try to not think about what I want to ask, because I really just want to like create a conversation together, almost like improvising together. And obviously Sarah is super down for that. So that was not a problem at all. So we are going to, I need to go into my stream manager so I can do this.
We're going to raid somebody.
We are going to raid the Killer Bee Relay team, who some of you probably know.
Ooh, I love that.
I'm super stoked about it.
I love that for us.
I love that for us. Again, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for the follows and the continued support with your subs. Like, means a lot to us. Like, kind of speechless sometimes when I think about how much love we've gotten on Twitch. It's pretty amazing. And how many cool people we've been able to get connected with on here. It's been really fun. I am having a fun time. So hopefully you got to experience our new release of that song. The song that we did for Sarah's composition and the video that we made is kind of part of a bigger project that we're going to release eventually. So if you really liked that, let us know so that we have encouragement to release it, because it's very much ready and I just get kind of overwhelmed by releasing things. So that's my bad. And I appreciate, any feedback you have for us about that performance that we did. We will be back on Saturday for movie night. I'm going to drop the Discord real quick as the last link before we go. If you want to vote on what movie we watch on Saturday, we do that in our Discord. Otherwise, we will see you on Saturday in the stream. Stay cosmic and let's enjoy some Killer Bee Relay team. Let's go. Woo.